Hello, my name is Dain Olsen, and I'm the media arts teacher and coordinator of a multimedia academy in downtown Los Angeles at a high school. I'm also currently co-chair of the Media Arts Committee for the National Coalition for Core Arts Standards. I'm a media arts education specialist. I've been working in developing and promoting media arts education for about 20 years. I served in LAUSD early on, 2006 or so, began developing media arts within LAUSD and distinguishing it, particularly through standards, but also through its pedagogy, its description, the way it's defined, and so forth. That work led to eventually the development of national media arts standards that I did through the National Coalition for Core Arts Standards. I led that development. And since then, those standards have been adopted in 26 states and counting. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of media arts, and media arts being defined as this technology-based creative production and design of photo, video, sound, animation, graphics, social media, interactive and virtual design, with all of these subforms. Some you might not be quite familiar that they are media arts: podcasts, app design, game design, multimedia journalism, etc. These tools, because of such a breadth, such a diversity of forms here that we're talking about, and capacities for communication, design, product development, as well as intersections with different disciplines, the other arts disciplines, of course, but also with the other content areas in education, as well as STEM to STEAM. We have some STEM teachers actually doing media arts production. Computer science, for example, working with game design. Those are areas that we're intersecting with these other disciplines, academic disciplines. So that it all adds to a great promise for media arts education in total. As my other video presents, it could be the center for education. That's how I've developed all of these programs that I have. This is how I have developed the standards and curriculum, is with this in mind, thinking of media arts from this central hub area. It can connect all kinds of things. It's an integrative discipline. Just to go briefly into the history here is history of media arts is what we're talking about. We see the beginning of television in the late 30s, and by the 50s there's millions of televisions, and then video games are developing in 72. We've got the internet in 90, and by 98 we have digital video production here, with the Apple computer really kind of revolutionizing digital video production, personal desktop video production, essentially, leading to where we are today, with so much YouTube being uploaded and consumed, and now the development of virtual and augmented reality. We're living very much within this media arts environment, and therefore education definitely should be reflecting this a lot more. It should be a required subject area within education, as something that does integrate across disciplines, but it needs to be distinct so that it can be developed fully for its own capacity and its own promise, its own potential for education, which should not be funneled through any other subject areas such as visual arts or computer science. It needs its own expertise to be developed and come to the fore within the discipline, lead the discipline, and develop the discipline for what it can do, what it's capable of, and to fulfill that role that I believe it needs to serve as an integrative discipline that leads new forms of instruction and teaching and learning that are relevant to the 21st century. In terms of media arts, I've been fortunate to have a program that is multi-year, at least ideally, it's a multiple-year program, and therefore you're building student skills over years. That's the advantage of a CTE program, I suppose. But those multiple years add up so that you can develop this robust set of skills, beginning with the foundational skills. Those foundational skills being creativity, imagination, a basic ability to kind of conceptualize visually what you want to design, what you want to create, put that into paper, work with that as a concept. So you're doing this concept drawing and manipulating things in your mind. And I basically want students to be able to draw anything that they can imagine in a very basic way. I'm talking about just ability to draw a storyboard, for example, that gives a good idea of what's happening in a scene to scene, what's going on in the story, what are the dynamics of the composition. Not that they have to draw things very realistically in that way. It's just enough to get the idea across with some accuracy in terms of perspective, the proportions of things, a figure moving a bit dynamically, say a stick figure that is able to move, and then some perspective and some ability to arrange things in space that reflect both the real world and what could happen imaginatively. So on that basic level, say conceptual drawing and some shading, then students are working with digital imaging, and they are able to create these compositions, move shapes, and then see how, once they have a basic drawing, they can organize shapes in different ways on these different layers and use the power of those tools to move things around, recombine them, process them in different ways, and therefore kind of open their minds to what's possible within the digital realm. And begin to understand iteration, changing things, developing things, making things evolve, and evolving in your process and your understanding as an artist so that you have kind of a portfolio of growth there. And then once that's accomplished, you can get back into story and address the idea of a story. The main idea of a story is that there is some kind of a challenge. In that case, I'm having students develop an unlikely hero. They should be able to take a very simple shape, an oval, and think of that as a character. In this case, it's an unlikely hero, and so it could confront some monster, something way beyond its ability to deal with. And then how does it confront that monster? And so they are overcoming the challenge. That's kind of the basics of all storytelling, and most movies are really stuck within the hero mode, right? And so therefore they're beginning to build those cinematic skills, the idea of the mind as a camera, and you're able to move through this dimensional space to tell your story from different points of view of the camera. That's a huge leap for students in their understanding, is to know that they can be a camera, and that the magic of movies is that cameras pervasive. It's everywhere. It could be up in somebody's eye, and it could be far away in the sky, and it could move and dynamically or shifting where you are in the scene to really get into the details of the drama of a confrontation between a small character who's very weak and afraid, and then this powerful bully who's overcoming them, and then the dynamic shifts, and then suddenly the unlikely hero is in control, has overcome the monster, is victorious. And so, just knowing those basics in terms of storytelling, is a good foundational skill, and that can go into their own filmmaking. They can begin developing their ideas for a narrative film, and acting comes out of that, and all of the ideas for camera work, editing, and then you're building all of these skills across those areas. I want my students to be versatile in that sense, to be able to do all those things, as well as just graphic design, how those carry over into graphic design, the focus, the balance, the composition, how you make something stand out, how do you make it communicate a message. All of these build together to empower students. And that's the media literacy that we're trying to build, is students able to have a command of media. So they understand how it works. They understand the tools. They understand how the music supports this and builds emotion, and the angle of the lens, the coloring, and so forth. All these things work together and integrated, and you're actually managing the viewer's experience. That's built into the standards. A very important standard is that you manage the viewer's experience, and they are actually being led through an experience by your ability to keep their attention, to direct that attention, and to keep things moving in kind of a rhythm and so forth. So you're actually an experiential designer. And actually, media arts students are not only experiential designers, they're teachers. They're teaching you something, some lesson within that film, that documentary, that graphic. It's all about teaching. That's why this works as that center discipline within the school, because it's all about learning and teaching. And those are media literacies, that things are constantly teaching you. You play that video game over and over again. That's what your brain is really adapting to. Once we understand that kind of level of media literacy, we become a lot more conscious of how media is working in our world around us. And then we're sort of enveloped within this media world that's constantly arguing politically, for example, about the way things are. And media arts empowers students within the literacies of this culture, okay? Those are multimedia literacies, and we're getting into virtual reality, and now you're going to get into this immersive experiential place where there's a whole nother level of intensity to the media, how it can manage your experience, take over your experience completely. The photo was convincing in its realism. Video became much more convincing. And now we are at a level of virtual reality, which is going to be extremely convincing of what reality is. So we need very powerful media literacies to accompany us that come in with this. This is the meta cognitive capacity that media arts education has, and why it needs to be in the center of the school, because then we can understand how this is working, and we can raise students with the capability of managing it within their minds, because we have not done that at all. There's no instruction in media arts literacies in education as it is right now. So that's what I want ultimately for my kids, is to have a mastery of media arts, not only for the gratification of being creative and producing great movies and various media, but to empower them with a voice and the ability to create their own world. But ultimately, it's about being in control of your world and controlling how you manage that relationship with media as well as technology. So we're talking digital literacies, media literacies, information literacies, and technology literacy, and even cultural literacy, if media arts is at the center of education.